January 2014 was unusually cold across eastern Kentucky, but how does it compare when we look at the historical record? Repeated cold waves resulted in 3 distinct time periods where temperatures fell below zero in January. These were the first widespread severe cold waves to strike eastern Kentucky since the middle 1990s. Temperatures averaged in the upper 20s for the month across eastern Kentucky, making January 2014 one of the coldest Januaries on record. However, this January did not approach the coldest January on record, which occurred in 1977, when temperatures averaged 7 to 10 degrees colder than in January 2014. The lowest temperatures observed in January 2014 did not approach all-time record low temperatures for the month. The greatest cold wave to ever strike Kentucky occurred in January of 1994. This cold wave brought widespread temperatures of 20 to 30 below zero, with the record low for the state being set in Shelbyville, where the temperature plummeted to 37 below zero. Below zero temperatures were widespread across eastern and central Kentucky on many mornings in January 2014. Looking at the morning of January 7th, we see that temperatures were below zero across almost the entire state of Kentucky. A cold wave later in the month brought widespread below zero temperatures to central and eastern Kentucky. The morning of January 22nd saw temperatures as cold as 10 to 15 below zero across parts of the area. And then on the morning of January 24th, widespread below zero temperatures were observed across the state once again, with parts of central and eastern Kentucky seeing readings as cold as 10 to 15 below zero. And finally, at the tail end of the month, the morning of January 29th saw another day where temperatures of zero or below were observed across almost the entire state. Taking a look at some specific recording stations across eastern Kentucky, starting with the National Weather Service office in Jackson, the coldest observed temperature in January 2014 was 7 below zero. This was the coldest it had been since February of 1996. It is interesting to note that from the early 1980s to the mid-1990s, temperatures this cold or colder were observed in the wintertime more often than we've seen in the past 2 decades. Taking a look at London, the coldest temperature observed in January of 2014 was 4 below zero. Again, if we look at the record here at London, we see that temperatures this cold or colder were more common from the mid-1950s up into the mid-1990s. And then taking a look at a couple of stations that have records going back 100 years or more, starting with Farmers, which is in Rowan County, the northern part of eastern Kentucky. The coldest temperature observed in January 2014 was 5 below zero. But again, it's interesting to note that from the early 1900s to the mid-1990s, minimum wintertime temperatures this cold or colder occurred more frequently. And finally, taking a look at Williamsburg, this is in Whitley County, so in southern Kentucky near Tennessee, the coldest temperature observed in January 2014 was 3 below zero. And once again, we see that same trend here, where temperatures this cold or colder were observed more frequently from the late 1800s into the mid-1990s. So in summary, January 2014 saw the first significant severe cold waves with widespread below zero temperatures in eastern Kentucky since the middle 1990s. It is unusual to go this long between major cold waves. Historical records show significant cold waves were more common from the late 1890s to the middle 1990s. It was also unusual to have repeated major cold weather outbreaks such as those that were experienced in January 2014. The lowest minimum temperatures experienced in January 2014 did not approach all-time records. However, January 2014 was generally in the top 10 to 20% of coldest Januaries on record for eastern Kentucky, but it was still 7 to 10 degrees warmer than the coldest January on record, which occurred in January of 1977.